clinical stuff.
Right, so
This meeting is being recorded.
So you can go to view and look at it.
I just had it on my personal one and then it disappeared.
Ted, go on mine first.
Hello, everyone. Just giving people another minute or so to join.
Hello.
Hi. Okay. Guest cards and admit. Okay. Are you connected? Morning, Kidby. I'm seeing the comments come through. We're doing it a little different this time around. I'll kind of regroup us, just orient us for today's session, and then I'm going to hand it off to lovely Kendra to walk us through the slides. Just a reminder, this is supposed to be like a working group. All sorts of conversations are welcome here, so I don't want it to feel like we're always just kind of preaching to you guys. Feel free to pipe in at any time if you have questions on specific slides as we go through. Please go to the next one. So this session, here's our agenda for today. We're just going to quickly recap at a high level some of the feedback we've received so far. It's just a way of being transparent at a high level, and then of course the very in-depth requirements are going to go off to the executive committees to have a thorough look and prioritize and make sure that what we've understood and have heard matches with what others' expectations are and what's feasible in our timeline. So you'll hear that. We also will have a look at the very initial kind of look and feel of the new Femoral 2.0, and of course the next steps with the naming of the contest. And I will have a slide where you'll see kind of the names that have been submitted so far. And you know, I know it's a bit early. We still have a little bit more time to get submissions and to vote on things, but just wanted you to see what's at least being circulated as ideas right now in case you absolutely love them or absolutely hate them. Perhaps we can get some more ideas coming our way. So you can skip to the next slide, please. Okay, so this is just a reminder of what we're doing at this phase of Femoral. We're focused on the left-hand side here now, just doing the core one-to-one replacements of those 4 components and the reporting features underneath to ensure that we are able to at least shut off what currently exists with some minor adjustments and improvements to those applications. So we can go to the next slide, please.
Yeah, great.
Go ahead.
Great. Well, thanks everyone for joining this morning. Even though I guess most of us are in the same building, it's nice to have you all online. So we're going to start off today going over some of the feedback that we've heard so far, and kind of parsing through that, I guess, and talking about it a little bit more and validating that we understood what you were telling us. So we'll start off today with the requirements required review. Yes, I think as we've mentioned several times, all the requirements that we are gathering will go to the review committee. So there'll be different review committees depending on which part of Femoral we are looking at removing something, adding something, improving something. So all requirements will need to go through them, but there are some requirements that will need some additional scrutiny, I guess, as we move through those in the future development phases. So things that might not necessarily be in the core one-to-one enhanced replacement. So I've highlighted some of them. I'm happy to talk about any of these if anyone wants to chat offline or give back now. But just to highlight that they are not in the following slides, and we'll kind of go through why that is. But just to know that I just wanted to show that we've heard you. We've incorporated your feedback into our I guess the wish lists, and just want to highlight here that so we've heard you, but they might need some additional review.
Mhm.
Okay, so far in the last two working groups, the first one we've covered the learner profile, and the second one we covered the faculty profile. So we'll go through the feedback we've heard from that for folks that maybe weren't there or folks that haven't finished their coffee yet. We'll kind of review some of the stuff that we heard there, just to validate that we did understand correctly what you were hoping to have in there. This is a good time, I think, to highlight that we've had some discussions in our team, and we're talking a little bit about how we can make Femoral work better for everybody. So we heard that you have to often go to different tabs to search for different parts of a user's profile. So our proposal, and we can get into this a little bit more as we go through these, is to have one general user profile with additional information, or we're calling them cards, for learners information, and then additional cards for faculty information. So that way we can accommodate a general user might be someone on the admin team. And then if we have a learner, they'll have additional information, but that information will stay, and then we'll add a faculty card if they transition from being a resident to a preceptor at any point. So you will have one place where you can find all the information on John Smith, let's say. And so that's what we're calling the general user profile. So I'm going to try and speak quickly because I like to talk and I have a lot of slides to go through. So if you have any questions, please just jump in and interrupt. Otherwise, I'm going to go through this. But as Marissa said, we do want this to be a conversation. So we are looking to have your feedback on every single line that you are about to see. So we've constructed these as user stories to give a high-level view of what each person needs to be able to do in Femoral. So it might not be the way that they're going to do it, but it gives you an idea that we know this is a feature that needs to be included or tackled or thought about in some way. So you can see, like, for example, access my personal profile. We don't know how exactly login will look. Maybe like this is something that will show also in the user interface section. But just to know that, just to highlight that we know that obviously they need to access their personal profile. And a lot of these you'll see also incorporate the feedback that we got that users should be able to go in and edit their own information in some sections where it's appropriate. So it's not so much work that has to go through the admin team. So as a general user, this is what someone will see and be able to edit on their profile.
And I think on this slide, most of this, as you realize, it's already in Femoral 1.0. I think the biggest one, obviously, is the being able to enter in your own preferred name, pronouns, gender, just, your legal name. We need to know for paperwork, but if you prefer to be called Johnny instead of John, then, we'll give people that flexibility to enter that information. Same with pronouns and gender. You might legally be considered something that you don't identify with. We'll make sure that everyone feels that they have that ability to share the information that they want the faculty or us staff to know. So any questions or concerns about that? If not, we can move on.
Yeah, and just to highlight too, was that something?
No, I think that's an old comment.
Oh, okay. If anyone sees something here that we've written, someone should be able to edit XYZ, and you really don't think that's the correct permission that someone should have for that field, depending on their user type, let us know. We're happy to. This is why we want to present back what we've heard and make sure that we got it right before it's too late. Okay, so moving on to the learner profile. So this will be basically everything that we've heard that a learner needs to be able to do. So you can kind of step into the shoes of a learner and see what they will be able to see, add, view, request, or edit. Again, any comments, feel free to jump in, interrupt, whatever you need to do. I'll just leave it for a second so everyone can take a look through it. And this is recorded, so if you feel like we zoomed through it a bit too fast, the recording will be coming in a couple days. Great. Okay, so this is from the perspective of a learner, and then we'll move on from the perspective of an admin team member. So this is what you should be able to do at a very high level on a learner's profile. Yeah, I think we'll have some conversations moving forward too. If that learner is an undergrad, we might need to look at that a little closer, or if they're, I think that it will be a PGY 4 question mark. So those will be conversations that we'll be looking into as well to make sure everyone's functionality is included. Kim, do you have something?
No, we're good. Yeah, sorry guys, we're on one screen here, so sometimes if we are down lower on our list, we might not see any hands raised, but.
I'm trying to raise my hand. I'm
This is
just
all
not
good.
finding my hand.
Oh, sorry, you're good, feel free.
I just want to make sure. So you know where it says edit, set, add. If I'm reading each one, I mean, sometimes it could be add and assign or edit. I'm going to assume that, like, is this the only thing that we can do as per what you're talking about? You know, like edit an admission into program. Maybe it's adding something or maybe it's updating it. I'm just wondering.
So I think if I'm understanding the question correctly, so admin users, like all of us on the line, will be able to do all this, add it, edit it, delete it. The learner from their side will also now be able to edit their information. And if that's not what we want them to do, then let's
Okay,
Yeah.
I guess that the example that I'm going to give, so let's look right at the bottom, the second from below. For example, add comments to learner's profile, but it would be add or edit, right? Like I'm just wondering, or where it says assign a learner to a team, maybe it's edit a learner from a team, because we may have assigned them initially, but maybe we need to edit it during the year because it needs to change. So I'm just wanting to make sure of those words.
No,
Yeah, that's
a good point.
Yeah, good point. And I think this is good feedback for me. And in the future, I'll try to, when we look at these, list whatever the highest permission level is. And I think that's something I had talked to Natalia about, and she also gave me that feedback. So I'm hearing this advice. Yeah, so I'll definitely, yeah, I am understanding that feedback. So I will be trying to list whatever the highest permission level is, but I think the assumption is if you can add a comment, you can also edit it. So by adding the comment, you have the permission to change that field in some way.
And that's what I wanted to confirm. That is what I am assuming here. I just wanted to make sure that what you were asking us when we're saying, oh, do you have any comments, like that I'm rightly assuming? Because there's a lot of things, like set a learner as a chief resident. Well, we might need to edit it. Like this past year, there is a chief resident that had to step down and we had to do another one. So setting one, but we need to be able to edit it as well. And I again, I assume that that's going to be doable, but I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and that's something I can definitely work on to make sure the language is reflective of that, yeah.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing while we're on this note then, Kim, is are we sure, and again, we'll get through all the nitty-gritties on the Excel spreadsheet together, but do we want a learner to be able to set themselves that they're a chief resident?
Nope.
Do we want them to be able to edit that?
No.
Right. So that
No, the permissions, and I think
only
that,
admin.
yeah, and I don't know if anyone here maybe is thinking this, but I know that when I did meet with Kendra and Natalia on this, one of the things that we wanted to make sure of, for example, when we are giving permissions, and this might not be the same thing for faculty, so maybe Andrea, you can comment, but for learners, if someone wants to change, let's say their phone number or their email, we need to make sure that if we are giving them permission for this, we need to make sure that there's a message coming to certain people to advise them on this. Because right now we've kind of blocked only central office to make those changes because we need to be able to communicate with them. So we have to think that some people have lists that they're using. And if someone changes their email address, if it just gets changed and no one tells the other people, we need to know. So what Natalia and Kendra we talked about was making sure that what is going to be built in that we're not talking about today is certain pieces, certain people would be advised if someone updates something. Because if we're giving them access to do that and we're not aware that it got done, like let's say Johnny, right? Like he prefers Johnny. If I don't know that, and I'll continue saying John, because I have him on a separate list as John. So we talked about maybe building some type of informing us.
Sorry, could we have like a something that sort of prompts us when changes are made? Like, would that be?
That's exactly what I'm saying, is that that's what we talked about.
I'm just trying to think, like, so you've got hundreds of people potentially in here that could be changing stuff. If you wanted to, I mean, it's a fine balance of like, then are we just now sending you a million alerts every time someone changes?
I think it's just certain fields. It's certain fields.
Okay.
Like right now, what is happening is that a resident, or maybe for Andrea, faculty will, because they're getting an email at a certain email address and they want to say, like, don't send it there anymore. They send us an email and we go in the system and we update it. But we make sure that whatever other list, like I have an Outlook contact list because I have groups, all depending what residency level that they're in, and maybe each site has the same thing. So sometimes there is some important information that is not getting to people because we're not communicating at the right level. So that's why I think that some information, so that is the giving them access to update it is fine, but what we're doing though, we need to build in letting us know that it got updated, or we just keep it as is, that a learner wants something to be updated. Well, there's an administrator that updates the database and has more control of the data that we need centrally, and that I guess needs to be a bigger discussion.
Yeah, we can definitely have a conversation moving forward as well when we get closer to being able to implement this kind of notification system, because we do just have the concern that if we allow, anytime anyone updates anything, you get like an email or something like that, and you have 70 residents updating, let's say on average 3 fields each, that's 210 emails to your inbox, right? So we want to be mindful of how can we give you these tools to succeed. But like, ultimately, I think the kind of problem that we're gonna be running into here is that right now, I think Femoral is very much sort of used as a way to export data sometimes, and then you just use this more longer term, and then sometimes you maybe fetch new data when you know something has changed or when you expect something to change or whatever. But ultimately, I would love it if we could end the practice of just using an Excel spreadsheet for a lot of the stuff. So whatever that might look like in the future, again, that's going to be an ongoing conversation, but ideally, we can nip that problem in the bud of having to let you know when it's changed by, instead of you going on your Excel spreadsheet and pulling all of that information there, you just go on Femoral and you pull that information there directly.
Is it okay if I
Okay,
interject?
to
I
be
don't know.
continued on this one. Go ahead.
I just want to echo, I completely agree with what Kim is saying. And like, I know that the volume of email might be a concern, but like really, if someone, like if a resident of mine, if their timeline has changed, if someone changes their end date, I would want to know, and I would want to make sure, yep, that's what I have too. Like the volume doesn't really scare me. We already get a lot of emails anyway. I would advocate for, and it may not be everything. Like if you're changing someone, I'd have to look at all the parameters, but email, site, preceptor, phone number, all of that. If someone's dates change, because sometimes I work with residents in the community and it's like, okay, this is what we set as their mat leave dates. And then all of a sudden I go in and I look in Femoral and it's different. And then I have a conversation. It's like, okay, no, we did that because of X, Y, and Z. It's like, oh, okay, now I'm being caught up and it was a week different than what I thought. Like those things, knowing those ASAP is important, even if it's just for confirmation, like, yep, that's what I thought was happening too. Yeah, the volume doesn't really scare. Like Kim might get them all, but like really I'm getting it from my residents, and ideally they're not changing their phone number every week. So it may not be like, there may be a volume at the start, but the changes, I don't know from the resident perspective, would come in that often.
No, resident, exactly. Right now, when we have residents starting July 1st, they all have their medical school address right now, and now they're deciding if they want to change over. So I'm getting a lot right now for sure. But during the course of the year, maybe a handful of them that make changes.
Yeah, and it's if someone gets married, like I would, if it's a community resident, oh, perfect, they've changed their name. I don't email them day to day, but I email them week to week. So I just, I want to call them by the correct name. Yeah, it would be, I don't think there's going to be a ton of emails. And also like the volume is fine. I don't want to speak for all the coordinators. But the volume doesn't scare me.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And like for the field that a learner will be able to edit themselves, there won't be things like your end date, like there won't be things that can mess up their rotation somehow. Like it will be stuff that's more information to them.
Oh no, and yeah, and it's whatever the residents can edit, like that would be important to make sure we know. But if someone goes in, like if Kim Beaubier goes in and changes the end date, like I might want to know about that just to confirm, like, yep, that's what we agreed upon. Yeah, hopefully the residents can't change all the fields.
Okay.
I would also like to plug one more time that everything that we gather is subject to review by the requirements committee.
Yeah.
I just have to do my due diligence on that, I feel. Yeah, so definitely it's heard and noted on the, whatever we're calling it, notifications, feature, center, I don't know, whatever the name will be, but yeah.
So just honor the messages and the chat as well. Seven said, I know that residents update their profiles on UO campus through Student Center. Could we receive this info, like primary, secondary emails, phone numbers, etc., from that base in some way? And so this will be an ongoing conversation between us and MedTech and Central IT. I would not currently rely on that as the plan, but that is something that we will be discussing as we move forward.
Speaking of moving forward, I'm going to do that. Okay, so I'll just sit back. We've seen this slide, and so this is the, I believe, yeah, the next one. So these are the things that a faculty member or a faculty director would need to have access to on the learner profile. So for faculty member would be the profiles of the learners they supervise, and then for a faculty director, it would be the profiles of all learners or all relevant learners, whatever makes sense for that individual. And I think this is part of, we'll get to this a little bit in the user interface designs, but we will have different user types in Femoral. And so it will be easy to set the permission levels. I'm saying easy because Natalia will be doing it. But it will be easy to set the permission levels for who can see what kinds of information.
What's faculty director? Who's the faculty director? It says see the profiles of all learners, faculty director.
Yeah, maybe I didn't use the right term. It would be someone like Ed. Like
Oh, okay, the program director. Okay, no, that's fine. I just wanted to. Wonderful. Yeah.
Program director. I will change that. Okay, and then moving on to the faculty profile. So this was our second working group, and a lot of the information you'll see here comes from that. So this is the permissions, or I guess the functionality that a faculty member will be able to add, view, edit, etc. on their own profile. Yeah, some of these will need to, I think, work on a little bit more in depth, such as like the 145 point or the point on mantra. So more on that to come. But just this mirrors what is in there right now. There's check boxes. I think it can be used more maybe as a just to-do list when setting up a new faculty profile to make sure that they have access to both of those. So that's something that we can dive into a little bit more as we work through that as well.
Wonderful. No,
Okay.
no, all good.
And so this is part 2 of that same list. So they're busy folks. They have a lot of things to do and things that they could do in Femoral. And so a lot of these that are capitalized here, they're fields that are in Femoral right now. So this is just to make sure that we don't lose any functionality. I just included them in the list right now. And I don't know if these are things that we want faculty to be able to do themselves, or things that maybe is more of an admin responsibility. So I'm happy to hear any feedback on that as well.
Yeah, do we want to start with Sylvie? Yeah.
Yes, would it be possible for them to add the links, the hyperlinks to external sites? So for example, their UNIWEM CV, because rather than having to re-enter it there for other academic activities, it's already captured in there, so they could be just a hyperlink to that. They're, especially for the researchers, their Google Scholar, their e-card, their e-business card from U Ottawa. So if we could add just a hyperlink that when we have, as an admin, when I have their page open, I can just click on that link and it brings me directly to all the lectures they're doing, all the students they're supervising. That's already available at the other site. So it would just be a hyperlink.
If this information already does exist somewhere else, that would be easier to not have to update in multiple places. I am very open to the idea of not having to bake all of this in myself.
But how does that information currently get into UniCV? Like, I'm trying to picture like the logistics of each day. So right now,
all of that information is entered by the user. It's entered by the faculty member. And that's what we've started to do a few months ago, where we're supporting them in having all of that information entered, which includes all their profile, their areas of interest for teaching and research and academic projects, that type of thing. So all of that is already in there. And that's where the university pulls their data for faculty members. So if we could just have a link to it, like nothing prevents them from entering it here also if there are other components, but the majority of it is already there in UniWeb. So if we could have a link to it, that would allow administrators to be able to go from whatever is here and also with additional and detailed information that's on the other site.
And you don't need special permission to access that UniWeb? Like, once we hyperlink to it, like, isn't it like 145 or where someone has to grant access to see the stuff that's in there?
You need your U Ottawa credentials if you want to view, if you want to enter your own information, but the rest of it, whatever the member has indicated that they are willing to share publicly, it's available publicly, like even the general public outside U Ottawa. So it could be, they will put as private, I don't know, their CPSO and OMA numbers or stuff like that, but they will put as public, here are the areas of interest that is of interest to me. Here's my practice profile. Here's my research profile. Here are my key publications in the last year. All of that, if they choose to make it public, then it's anyone can see it.
Yeah, I would prefer it if we go down this route to as much as possible, make there only be one source of truth for any of this information. So if we are giving them access to providing these hyperlinks, I prefer us to not also then add a research interest field or whatever in their profiles, just leave that wherever it will exist. So that's the only conversation I prefer us to be mindful of. Don't want to duplicate work for anybody.
So
And
yeah,
it's
let's
nice,
explore that
you
in a
can-
bit
you
more
can
depth
sort
maybe,
and
in a separate, because I'm just certain, yeah.
It's because I know that I just watched the session from the last session because for Femoral, because I hadn't been able to attend, and I saw there was, well, we want to be able, for example, to extract who's interested in this area so they could sit on this committee. That information is already on UniWeb, so they could go there to, you can extract and filter and do all of that.
But that's what I'm wondering if I'm missing something, because if it's already there, is it just that we don't have access to see it? And so then we need to
No.
replicate it in our own.
No, what's happened is that the FM members have not entered their information because it's the onus is on the faculty member to go and check mark all the menus as to what they're interested in, and they have not done so. And that's why but now that we've provided the service where they have admin support to help them do that, when it's their first time, after that, they've been told they need to maintain it themselves. But for the first time, they've been told they will have up to 3 iterations that they can work with a staff member. And once their profile is all done, then it's up to them to maintain it after that.
Okay. Noted. Thank you, Sylvie.
But I think also is that people are not aware of UniWeb, like internally at the DFM, they're not familiar with it and they have not been using it to the extent that they could have. So we should do an awareness campaign also of what's available there.
Yeah, good point. Okay, Donna, a question, comment?
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious. I understand the set my specialty. That's the one that's on the front page. But you've got listed here, set my undergrad teaching, clinical teaching activities, and teaching activities. Those are pretty much the same thing, and they're all listed on the page of the roles. So are you splitting that up so that we can tell it's more clinical teaching as opposed to, say, pre-clerkship teaching, as opposed to what they've done in the last 3 years?
That's a good question. This is as it is shown right now in Femoral. So if it is something that you want more split up, now's the time to tell us.
Okay, no, this is perfect. I just wondered if you were going to be splitting it up or leaving it as it is on Femoral.
If it's working well for you as it is now, then that's something that we can take into account.
That's
if there's
perfect.
other information you want. Okay.
Thank you.
Great, we love it.
I just wanted some clarification, that's all, but thank you.
Yeah, good question.
Okay,
Oh,
we're at the halfway mark, so keep that in mind as we.
Okay, so moving on, so this will be on the faculty profile, what an admin team member will be able to do. And again, if any of these are incorrect, please tell us in the chat, whatever's easiest, or unmute or put your hand up and unmute yourself, or find me at my desk, or send me an email, whatever works best for you, and we'll make sure that it's accurately represented. Yeah, we do have the point halfway down to see which learners and faculty members are linked. This one is very general, but it was feedback that we heard in, I think, the last working group, that it's not too clear right now to see which, for right now, learners and residents and preceptors are associated to each other without kind of scrolling through it and finding all that information yourself, but was information that was needed to be more obvious. So I've included it now quite high level, but just know that it's on our radar.
And on that note, I think Sylvie and I are having conversations in emails. We'll capture the stats of FMRSP projects as well in terms of team members and due dates and all that at this stage of the game. So that will also be included. We're going to save that for a future working group to kind of make sure we've hit all the fine points on that. But just didn't want you to think we've overlooked that here. It's just too becoming to a slide near you.
Okay, and then that one's continuous. There's a few more things here that will be included. Yeah, and again, where it says add comments, it will also be the same as we see in the learner profile. Stuff like that will be add, edit, update, whatever we want to call it. Yeah, just to note that too. Cool, and if there's no comments, we're gonna keep moving. Okay, and then this is what we heard last time from the finance team. So these are some things that will be important for them. We do have on the slide that we started with that there's some parts that will be going to the requirements committee on more specific financial information. So just to note that we did hear those, but they will be subject to a more strict examination. Great, and so next we'll get into just a high level, calling this change requests. So these are things that are bigger changes that we've heard in the past couple working groups. So things that don't exist now or need to change more drastically than just maybe the wording on a field or something like that. And just summarizes kind of where we are right now.
I think the big ones, there's going to probably be a few just changes in terminology, like resident to learner, preceptor to faculty. There might also be components when we kind of further develop that of like, what's the difference between pulling reports versus just having stats displayed somewhere. And so we'll get there eventually on those kinds of things, but those could potentially be on a future dashboard instead of, as Natalia was saying earlier, pulling a million Excel spreadsheets. If there's a new way we can kind of change the way we work, but if it's not possible, as we discussed earlier, then that's fine. We'll work out those details as well. So yes, Kim?
Yes, I'm just wondering, I don't see it here, maybe, and maybe it is. We had talked about where it does talk about external users, add external and internal users. So right now, the reason that we can't add the external is because the only way to access our database is using an AD account. And as we know, AD account is with an academic appointment. So one of the, I guess, requests was to have us be more of the managers of the usernames and passwords, just like if we were Google Gmail, right, is creating your Femoral account, and it would be different. So I guess that would be a high level change request is more that. I don't know if it's in here, like I read through this quickly, but that would have been an ask as well.
Yeah, so we do have it, it's the fourth last one. To add both I'm calling internal, anyone who has a UOttawa email or something of the like that can be integrated. And so external, I don't know if you want to speak to that.
But I said it's more about managing the passwords and managing the user and password, that we have more, that we're not dependent on an AD account at the faculty, so that if Chandra has a new doctor starting tomorrow or who needs to come in to replace for 6 months, that needs access to field notes, the residence file and all that, and that all the academic appointment stuff cannot be processed more quickly, and that poor Andrea is trying to get a permission that we can at least add them and give them access.
Yeah, so that's kind of necessarily implicated by external users. If they are external, they just can't have an AD with the university because they're not with the university. That's something that we're going to have a very, very fun conversation with MedTech and Central IT about, because as we look at what parts of this are university data and are not university data, we need to apply with policies. So that will be a very fun experience that I look forward to greatly.
But yeah, it's a requirement that we're aware of, and
okay, that's
process of login, and it'll be very similar. Well, for at least for the internal users, like admin centrally will be able to see what their username is, but the password, the person's going to have to just go and reset themselves.
Yeah.
Exactly, and if they lose it, exactly. In other words, and I think Marissa, you were doing this at one point, when they had difficulties and you had to go and check somewhere, and then you had to, but So if I don't know my Gmail username, normally when I set it up, like I have something that it points to, like it sends me a note on my phone. So if they need to reset it, that we have that built in somewhere so that that is more automated, that we're not dependent on being a help desk for that piece.
Yeah, users will also, like, if we can make an external account, like, the goal is to enable them to reset their own passwords without even having to ask an administrator for that, because that seems like a feature that is expected in 2022. So yeah, user management is something that we are very aware of.
Wonderful,
It's
exciting.
also
Thanks.
in our interface. We have some fun pictures coming up of our proposed, I guess, user interface, and you can see that also there.
Yes, Chandra?
Just to make sure I heard correctly. So yes, the user will be able to go in and reset their own password. Can we as admins or whoever it is go and do it for them? And like click a button and say like send password update to preceptor. I know that's not ideal. I'm just thinking of our lovely docs and how they request things and how they work. Whether they should or not, they will reach out and say, can you just send it to me right now because I'm in the middle of clinic, but I got to sign it or whatever it is. And I know that's a lot of hand holding, but that is how they operate. So if I can be like in 145, like here's a reminder. Sorry, you cut out there.
We don't reset, do we? Like they have the ability
Yes.
on the login page.
Yes, we
forgot
do.
password,
Yeah,
reset
we
it.
can right now.
Yeah. It's like in 145, you know how you can click the like reset password button and it generates an email automatically? Like if whoever emails and is like, oh, I don't know how to get in. Like if we could do that, that would be really helpful. Just be like, oh, I've just sent you, like I've initiated the email going to you. I have no role in it. I'm not getting an email, but I can do it for you. And just,
Can make that in for sure. I would, as much as possible, encourage us to make people aware of the ability of doing that themselves, because I don't want you guys to have to be bogged down with it. But if that is something that at the very least you need, like we can talk about that for sure.
Yeah, I think it would be a helpful option. And yeah, we would we wouldn't do it, once a week for the same doc. We would hopefully educate them as we go. But I think having the ability for some of our less tech savvy preceptors will be helpful until they sort of figure out how to do it on their own.
Yeah, and you'll also be able to see their username in Femoral, so if they are able to do some part of it themselves, you could remind them of their username and say there's a forgot password button, like.
Yeah.
So yeah, we can maybe talk about that too. So we can customize it to the person themselves a little bit. Okay, let's get into the fun stuff of seeing the initial designs for the new, maybe called Femoral, maybe called something else. So these have all been put together by our lovely Oksana, who could not be here today, but it does give you a snapshot of what we're hoping it looks like, and we are open to any and all suggestions.
Yeah, any and all, including the font type, the colors, the shape of each little box. I mean, this is Oksana's first kind of kick at the can of what would be aesthetically pleasing to have to stare at for a long hour day. So this is the login page as stands. It's going to look obviously fairly similar to the current Femoral, but you'll see on the next pages where some of the key differences are.
Yeah.
So yeah, just a login page. And if you remember now, our current Femoral, there's the login page, and then you're just kind of brought to like the dumping ground of where you want to search. That's not what we will be seeing. Yeah, it's coming soon. So it'll be slightly different this time. But.
Yeah, and you can see here that we do have this single sign-on. So folks that have a UOttawa account, they will single sign on through Microsoft, through their Microsoft-backed UOttawa account. But for folks who are external, they would just go username, password, use the forgot your password function there. Yep, and then just log in.
And then once we have a name determined, we could also plug in whatever, if there's logos or any other branding to the login page, then we can. If we need to include DFM or UOttawa logos, that can be on there as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is our, as I mentioned in one of the earlier slides, the plan is to move away from having the 3 different profiles. So right now, what is the resident profile, preceptor profile, and the user profile, and just move into user. So this is for every single person who is in Femoral, what they will see on their user page. And then everyone who is a user would have the ability to edit their information, most of this information, I should say. So you can see on the side here, there's the preferred name is Ronald, for example, for the person. The legal name or the name that the university has is Ronaldo. And then you can see that this user goes by he, him, his. And you can see their primary email and their primary address and their primary phone. So there will be another place that if this particular user has 20 emails, we can track all that, but this will show you the one that they want to be contacted at. Yeah, we'll show you their username as it appears for them to access Femoral. And then you can see for this individual, their user type is faculty. So that will enable them to access or to see, I guess, different cards related to them being a faculty member and not a learner.
And on this page, could you just speak to the differences between the administration on top?
Yeah,
Because
for
I
sure.
think we're kind of used to, for those that use Femoral a lot, seeing that administration new, administration newest.
Yeah.
That is not what this administration means anymore, so.
Yeah, for sure. So we will likely continue to expand the options that are here in the navigation bar. This, again, is just an initial mock-up to show you what it could look like, pending everyone's feedback or thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever we think is going to happen here. So just to give you an idea that we are going to move away from some of we will have, of course, the features, the more standalone applications, but this, since we've only collected feedback so far on the learner profile and the faculty profile, this is more, think of it from a profile lens. So this will continue to expand. So we have right now home, which will hopefully not say coming soon, but will be populated with something that you want to see. For now, the landing page will take you to your own profile, but we can talk about that in future working groups, what that landing page will look like. Right now we have search, so instead of going through all 3 different profiles, you can go and search for one person. We have reports. And right now what is under administration is what we are referring to as system administration, so only a handful of users would be able to see that. Those are also the people that we're calling super users. So those are the people who can go in, and if we don't want username to say username anymore, or if we want a space between the word user and name, or I don't know what, those are the people who can go in and can change those fields or add new options to drop down or.
Like system-wide changes, not just a change on Ronald's profile.
Worthy of mentioning, it wouldn't have the level of granularity of changing like individual labels and stuff like that.
Okay,
like that's
okay.
because that's just a level of granularity that would just make even administrating this really a bit of a nightmare. But for example, to add a new, address label type or a new gender, which is a very funny thing to be able to say out loud. And things of that sort. So anything that involves, this is one option right now. There might be more down the line, but we want to keep them like structured and finite. Give you the tools to kind of expand or contract that as needed.
Great, and then you can see the pencil in the top right-hand corner of this card, so it indicates that some parts of this card are editable. So we are thinking about having a kind of a view-only mode. So when you go on this user's profile, we're assuming that you don't need to edit every single part of the card. And for situations like this, you might just want to go in and copy and paste their email. So that's how this initial card is set up, and then we'll move to the next card. So now you're into the edit screen, so let's assume you've clicked on the little pencil on that top card, and you can see what's behind those cards. So where it says, for example, preferred name on the right-hand side there, Ronald, it is there, but then when you save it, it will populate under this user's profile picture. So a few things like that that kind of move around. Yeah.
And so then it just becomes, not to get too much into the background of it all, but then it becomes easier to add additional cards as our needs expand over the years, or remove cards or set permissions based on those cards of who can edit and who can't, or how a notification gets sent to us centrally or not. So it might look fairly similar, but the background flexibility and scalability is going to be vastly different.
The idea is really to have these profiles be fully modular and to always prioritize the core information. So for example, for users that will have previously been learners and then became faculty down the line, we would ideally like to have the faculty information above their learner information, because obviously that's more relevant at this point in time. But still be able to see both learner and faculty information in the single source of truth.
And some fields won't be editable to the user themselves. Like for this one, we would assume that this is an admin person who's editing Ronald's user profile. Obviously, Ronald won't be able to edit his own user type and just switch himself from faculty to admin because he feels like it. But yeah, anyways, just want to highlight that.
And so this stage of the game, obviously for each and every component that we have kind of discussed here and are yet to discuss, the field notes and leave of absence, the look and feel will all be wireframed out to great detail by Oksana. This was just a very initial, this is what we think the look and feel should be like. Does anyone hate this? Does anyone love it? Would you rather, I mean, we want to be mindful of visually what's accessible for people, like no color blindness, like straight from those kinds of things. But if you dislike purple, now would be the time, I guess, to talk. And then there's even very finite details, like each box or fields has like a shading behind it to kind of make it pop or look more modern. If that's offensive to anyone or like visually, then let's talk about that. Again, either offline or via email. But yeah, that's the kind of feedback I think Oksana is looking for now in terms of visuals, so that she can then start to get into the nitty gritty of what each and every other feature will look like. Yeah.
Is this one the exact same?
Yeah, it looks like, yeah.
Very similar?
Yeah.
Okay, pretend we didn't see that one. We're skipping that one.
Here we go.
Yeah, this one's just showing that we'll have different, from the profile icon in the top right-hand corner, we'll have different options that folks can access. So you can go to your own profile settings where you can change your own information. There's a contact/help form. We'll have a frequently asked questions section for how to use Femoral or whatever it will be called, and then of course the logout button.
It's kind of toggle, I think, from languages.
Yeah,
different languages.
Yeah, languages. Okay, moving on. This one was different in some way, but I think anyways, everyone gets the idea. And then this takes us to the contact form. So this is something that will be, is it
Comments? Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. So the comment is just Kim was saying that for her it's small, but with screen settings, she can make it look bigger for herself. But no questions or anything.
Okay. And if anyone wants to see these in a bit more detail, I'm happy to send the picture after. If they want them in and stuff. Not while they're when you're using it, of course, you can change your screen settings.
And of course, the idea would be for if you are logged in, I would like to pull some of that information just from your own user profile and stuff like that. So that way we can just use the more relevant information. But this is what you might see if you are not logged in, for example.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Kim?
I'm just wondering, the page that we're seeing right now, the contact us. So this is if I'm faculty A and I'm going on and I want to send a question, the first name, last name, and email, that's of the person who is sending it? Or it's who you want to speak to?
No, the person who's sending. This is so we know who you are.
Okay, so I'm just wondering, because we're logged in or everyone is individually logged in, could that not be auto-populated where someone doesn't have to type in first, last, email, phone, because it's already there, so that it's already there?
Yeah, so that's what I was saying.
Oh, sorry, I
a second
didn't
ago.
understand
If you
that.
are logged in, this information will be pulled for you, but if you are not logged in, I still want to make sure you have the ability to try to contact us in some form, and that will just mean that you have to supply your own information because we have no idea who you are if you are not logged in.
I understand, and I apologize for not hearing that correctly. Thanks.
And the form will be sent to someone, hopefully Natalia, who can actually answer your question and integrate your, or someone on our team, whoever's relevant. So it'll, it stays kind of within the team. It's not, I understand right now being outsourced to another team.
Right.
So that's just something I wanted to mention as well.
Yep, and it'll be auto-populated with whatever is in Femoral as their primary preferred address. And so that will be another way to kind of double check ourselves to make sure that whatever is entered in primary is indeed what they want.
Okay, I'm going to zoom through the other ones. We have 5 minutes. Okay, so next steps following day. We have a very important deadline coming up in about 7 days. We will be closing the renaming contest. But I did want to give folks a snapshot of what we have received so far. I have added a bit of extra context to these just so everyone is aware of what the submission is, and one parentheses has been forgotten, but otherwise, just to give you an idea of what's been submitted so far. If you love it, get ready to vote on it. If nothing is appealing to you, there is the QR code in the next slide, so please get those creative juices flowing and submit your ideas. We are hoping to close the voting process.
Sorry, this is the first time I'm seeing this list. Very nice.
Yeah, we're hoping to close the voting in about a week, the contest in about a week, and then we'll do voting to shortlist and choose our winner. Great. Yeah, so as I said, you still have time in bold. So if you still have an idea, you can scan the QR code, I believe, on the screen with your phone, or you can come to see me after and I will give you the link. Following that, do you have anything else you want to?
No, I think that's it. We'll be in touch very soon. We're going to debrief on this in the next day or so, and then announce next topics for future working groups as well as next steps for the renaming contest. Please submit ideas now if you have them. And that's it. I'm gonna go through the chats here, just make sure I haven't missed anything important, and we'll make sure we're documenting all of this. And you, of course, will then send out the video to widely to make sure everyone who couldn't attend or wants a closer look has that chance to have a look at these in detail.
Yeah, and I think we heard some feedback from a couple people that moving forward, the working groups will be sending out a smaller, supposed to be sending out to a smaller group, so we'll probably do a Teams invite or something similar. Just so we don't have to register every time, now that we have kind of a dedicated group of folks on the edge of their seat about the new Femoral. So we'll be doing that so you can keep track of it a bit easier in your calendar, but we'll be doing the event right for the larger info sessions, which we're doing quarterly. But will be a bit easier to see and access all the Zoom info and everything like that.
That's right. So we're just going from the past few working groups, that kind of contact list, to send out the Outlook calendar invites for these upcoming working groups. So anyone that's listening to this kind of post-event, if you think we haven't sent it to you and want to be included, just send Kendra at the PMO-DFM email address a note, and we'll make sure that you're included on that Outlook invite. That's it. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for your input, your feedback.